Hi, everyone. My name is Stuart Crawford, and I am the marketing manager and part of the marketing team at CIO Advise. We are a leading advisory firm for IT firms and CIOs and executives who are looking for expert IT guidance. Today, I'm joined by our fearless leader, Mr. Brian Lambach. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hi, Stuart. How are you doing?
Good. And Bob Hicks from Recovery Point up in Maryland. Bob, good to have you as part of our inaugural podcast episode.
Thank you, Stuart. Really great to be here.
So, gentlemen, one of the things that caught my attention in listening to the conversations over the last few weeks is we got a new partner, Brian, with Recovery Point. Tell us a little about how did the relationship with Recovery Point come together, and give us your introduction to CIO Advise and everything that we do as a firm.
Okay. So CIO Advise is a technology business consulting company. We specialize in digital transformation, and that's a large topic. But for the most part, we look for siloed data and different sources and bring it together in a cohesive system. We utilize Microsoft tools to do that, and we have been very successful at it. As far as Recovery Point, I met Tony Rosobi, the CEO of Recovery Point, several years ago at a private equity firm that we used to work with. And Tony and I hit it off recently back in October. He took the CEO job for Recovery Point, and we started doing some talking about what his services are doing and what how CIO Advise can help, and how we could also help distribute their product as well. So, what we're helping with Recovery Point today is we're doing digital transformation with them. They've invested in Salesforce and Dynamics 365. We're connecting those two, and we're making an automated business process for them to ensure that they are successful as they rapidly grow, which they are doing right now. The products that CIO Advise and Recovery Point can offer our clients is really in the disaster recovery as a service product line. And I'm going to let Bob Hicks, the CEO of Recovery Point, talk a little bit about their product set and how we can market that to our clients.
Thanks, Brian. Stuart, appreciate the opportunity. Brian, great to see you again. Appreciate all the good work you and your team have been doing for Recovery Point. It's outstanding. And to your point, really the CIO Advises focus area in digital transformation, coupled with the client vertical segments that you really excel in, is incredibly synergistic and aligned with our core competencies at Recovery Point. Really, that's the foundation of the excitement of the partnership, beyond just you servicing our needs, which is obviously needed and appreciated. On the Recovery Point side, we're a lot of things in the recovery world. So if you look at the traditional recovery business, it was a hot site business. It was a bunch of equipment that people leveraged and shared on an as needed and shared risk basis. And that industry evolved, and that still exists, but it has evolved into the DRaaS, or disaster recovery as a service, which has a lot more dedicated components and a lot more fast recovery components to it. It includes things like data replication and automation and orchestration platforms to really act on behalf of a client. So that is where we really excel. We support not only the traditional VMware, physical server, Microsoft, Linux set, but we also service all the proprietaries such as IBM mainframe, the Z frame, IBM I, right? The evolution of the AS400, AIX, their Linux version, or Unix version, I should say, HPUX on the HP side, on their proprietary Unix system. All these are very unique platforms. They take unique skill sets, obviously proprietary equipment. And when you look at the DRaaS landscape of competitors in the market, you start asking who can do all of these. And Brian, I'm sure you experienced that there's lots of heterogeneous platforms out there, particularly in the enterprise space. So you start finding that single focused DRAS providers can't solve the entire problem. You start fractioning off the business, and you sort of get a disconnection of the continuity of the recovery. When you bring it all together, and there's only a few selections to bring it all together, like Recovery Point, it's a really great solution. We do mainly deliver that out of our Maryland site. We do have a data center in Illinois, and we are on the path to make acquisitions throughout the lower 48 states in strategic markets where we think we can extend our recovery operation and excel in marketing those regions.
So, Bob, I have a quick question before we get into the services that Brian and our team at CIO Advisors are providing to. What is, in your opinion, what is the biggest difference between a DRAS service and just regular old business continuity?
So when you look at business continuity, or the hot site business in the old days, that is traditionally a backup on a tape or a virtual tape library. It requires a restoration. So a building of a set of equipment. Here's some equipment. Okay, now it's running. Now you load an operating system. Now it actually boots. And now you start restoring data. And now you got data out there. Now you start working through your app level, and ultimately you have an environment that your client can use to run their business on, assuming they were in a disaster scenario. For DRAS, it typically has some sort of replication component, and it has some pre-staged assets. And when you use products like Veeam or Zerto, for instance, you can just take that replication set, connect it to a virtual machine. Now we're talking about x86 at this point, and really just push a button and servers pop up. The data connects, there's no restore, it connects and the machine comes right up. So it's a lot faster. Your typical recovery windows for a hot site are 24 to 48 hours. There are target sites for DRAS recovery that are within an hour or less than an hour, right? And you're focusing on your recovery point and your recovery time objective. So the recovery point is how much data can you stand to lose? If you're doing daily backups, you could lose an entire 24-hour period worth of data. If you're doing replication, and depending on the tool, you could be within less than a minute of data transactions, right? So that's really the primary difference, is recovery time and recovery point objectives are compressed in a good way in a DRAS environment.
And the difference between Recovery Point and, say, let's say, one of the other leading MSP services like a Datto, is there any significant difference between the two?
I would like to think so. The number one is they don't handle any of the proprietary platforms, right?
The AIX, the Unix, the HPUX, and all that. They're okay.
They're predominantly a Microsoft-based recovery solution. Now that's a big part of the market. I don't want to diminish it, but we also, because of our accreditations, we do have GSA standing with the federal government. We do a lot of Fed and SLED business. We have a building in Maryland that is built to GSA blast standards to meet federal requirements. So we can do all of these things are great and are somewhat necessary for the federal business, but our commercial clients benefit from that because it's the building, right? I don't half of it blast proof and the other half not. So we have a higher level of facility. We're Uptime Institute certified tier 3, constructed and operating. So it's designed and operating, I should say. Again, not a lot of those. There are some, but not a lot across the country. So we have these accreditations, and we are currently have an authorization to operate on the FedRAMP platform, and we're just about ready to go on the marketplace, waiting for our PMO registration to complete. And again, a very, very distinct difference from those providers. And lastly, I'll just say, probably from I mentioned our vertical focus and our client size focus in the beginning. We tend to do large enterprise work. Companies that are extremely large, household name companies, and not to say we wouldn't work with anybody, but if you look at some of our competitors, like the one you mentioned, they tend to be more small to mid-market.
SMB, yeah, SMB focus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The other thing that Bob hasn't mentioned is that, you know, they've been in the Gartner upper magic quadrant for several years in a row. So that has staying point as well. The way we look at it from a CIO advised perspective for our clients is when we go in and look at a company and assess their technology, 9 times out of 10 they do what Bob was saying. You know, they have backup tapes, or they have a off-site service. They haven't really graduated to a fully functional DRaaS solution. And as part, especially in the cybersecurity world that we live in right now, it's absolutely critical to have, because it's not if you're going to get hacked, it's when. And when you do, if you don't have instant access to your data, you can be down for weeks, months, or even longer. And I think that's a real big selling point for us when we're talking to our clients about the overall enterprise solution for them from a technology perspective.
Yeah, I would agree, Brian. Thanks for mentioning the Gartner thing. Yeah, we've been in the leader quadrant for the last 3 magic quadrants issued by Gartner, which is quite a feat. When you look at the other people in that, their size is monumentally larger than us, and we took them down, right? We beat them in that thing, and that's pretty exciting and very difficult to do. Yeah, Brian, your point about data protection in a hack perspective, right? Another thing we uniquely offer, Stuart, is air gap services. So we actually still run a tape storage business, and it's devolving over time because tape is being abandoned for spinning disk. But believe it or not, we still have hundreds of thousands of tape stored in our Gaithersburg, Maryland site, and with that infrastructure and ability, we can actually take replicated data, which is instantaneously moved, and we can spin it off to tape and put it in a vault, creating a physical barrier between the copies. And if production were affected and that replicated to a replication set and it wasn't caught and it got caught up in a normal backup process, we could still have a separate set of data off and completely air gapped away, so that the last it's the reserve chute when you're jumping out of the plane, right? Your primary chute failed, and we can offer a reserve chute scenario. So
definitely needed in today's landscape, especially with all the ransomware and all that stuff going around. So Bob, Brian mentioned at the opening, you're looking at Salesforce, Microsoft CRM, going through digital transformation. Transformation, I guess is the way to look at it. Tell us what was going on with Recovery Point that said, it's time for us to move in this direction.
So Recovery Point's a 35 plus year old company, so it's not new. And it was founded by a very forward-looking gentleman who did an awesome job of building the business up. As time went on, and as recent as last August, I came on to help him formulate a strategy, and we actually ended up selling the business to a private equity firm last August. And so I think you mentioned Tony Wasabi earlier, Brian. Tony and Rob Carter and myself all worked together in a previous employ. And I came early to help do what we did, but Rob and Tony came after the acquisition. And, Tony is an incredible sales leader. He is our CEO, but he is a sales machine. And we have full intent to scale this business. And doing it on the legacy platforms just wasn't possible. They were very good platforms, still are good platforms for the size of the business and the volume of business that was historically done. But with the pedal on, the pedal to the metal, and the growth absolutely is primary focus with us. We really needed to move into a more traditional modern platform, something that would support a distributed sales force a little better, something that would support multiple sites a little bit more easily, and that's what drove us to that transformation.
So Brian, describe our process? How did we, understand the needs of Recovery Point? What was our deliverables to get them from point A to point B?
Yeah, so we initially engaged with Bob and Rob to talk a little bit about the Microsoft stack and how it can help. They were already on Dynamics Nav, and they wanted to utilize that product because it had customizations to their business that they had already done. And so an easy migration path for that was the Business Central product. It's a more modern look and feel, but it also gives you a lot of the workflow automation that they've been desiring, because there's a lot of manual work that goes into from the finance and operations perspective that they want to automate, such as expense management. They have people flying around the country, and collecting those expenses has always been manual and so on. And they also, from a CRM perspective, they wanted to do CPQ, and that is something that Salesforce does very well. They like the Salesforce platform. We also looked at the Microsoft CRM platform at the time, but the sales folks felt more comfortable with a Salesforce platform. And the great thing about Business Central is it can integrate with many different third-party products. So the build out of the CRM product is the Salesforce right now is ongoing. We're part of that team to understand what data is going to be coming from Salesforce at what time to push into Business Central. In the meantime, we're standing up the Business Central platform and transitioning the data and the processes that were in the legacy system up into Business Central, modernizing that process, looking at the workflows to make sure that we're optimizing their digital transformation process. And I believe at the end of the project, they'll be able to go from a lead all the way to cash and have the data points all the way through that, and be able to report on that, have really great dashboards for Bob and Tony and Rob to understand what their business is doing on a daily basis and make corrections as they go along, looking at products that maybe they have in their bag that aren't selling too well. How do we transition those out, add new products, those kind of things? That's going to be available with the data that we're going to have access to. And that's what CIO Advise really tries to get at, is where is your data from a business? How are you using that? How can we automate that so that you have instant access to that data to make really great business decisions and drive the revenue of the company up?
So, Bob, Brian hit on some really good points there, especially the single pane of glass, as we often refer to in this in this industry. But talk about the importance of getting that real-time information so you can make informed business decisions, without having to go hunt for this and hunt for that and have all this disjointed information. How does it improve the efficiencies at Recovery Point?
Yeah, we're getting there, right? We're in the midst of this digital transformation. So I have high hopes that the other end of it will be phenomenal and well informed. But from experience, I've done this multiple times now with different entities. I would say, evolving entities that have matured into acquisition into larger entities. It's incredibly important to be able to get the information you need when it's no longer calling an individual and getting an answer. It's now multiple individuals, business units, and/or sites that are feeding, right? And what becomes impossible to manage is having to call 5 people to get 5 sets of information on the same topic because they're from different entities within the org. That's an impossible way to manage a business, and so bringing that data together on a common platform, which is really, I alluded to that a little bit earlier, right? Is our legacy platforms were great when everybody sat in the same room, but it doesn't work. The way they're built and the way they were utilized and accessed, it doesn't work on a go-forward basis. So it's incredibly important to have that information, because you can make a big mistake, right? If you don't know the real conditions of the business, you might commit to a spend that you shouldn't, or you might not buy what you should have, and lots of different things. So
yeah, I'd like to comment on that also. A lot of our clients wait till end of month, get a monthly stack of reports. They look through them, they make corrections, And sometimes that data is not available till a couple of weeks after close. And what we call that is, driving a car through the rear view mirror, right? You're looking back, but you're driving forward.
Yeah.
So what we try to do, just is get that access to that data as real time as possible, so that you're making decisions as you're driving. You're not making decisions because last month we didn't have a good year or a good month in this product. You can start making those real-time decisions, just like Bob said. Maybe they don't spend in a certain area or not, but rather than waiting till month close for financials, you can start driving questions to people and during the month, and making sure that you have the correct answers and backed by data.
Yeah. I think that's super important, having the right data. I mean, I reflect back to my time as a IT professional in the Calgary, Alberta oil and gas industry, and I remember Laurie Smith, who was the first CIO that ever mentored me, he said, Stuart, I don't care about all this technology. I just want to be able to go in and tell, when I walk into my management meeting, say, this well is producing this much gas right now. Yeah. And that was the start of our PVR system, which fed the real-time gas information into the head office versus syncing it up in the middle of the night. So,
there's nothing worse than going to a meeting with a set of reports that somebody has another set of reports and those numbers don't match.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm dating myself. That was back in 1998. I still remember getting Oracle, trying to punch in Oracle SQL through firewalls on checkpoint firewalls back in 1998.
Yeah.
The early adoption of the cloud. So talk about the cloud, Bob. You mentioned, because I think if I heard you right, Recovery Point is what we would call a modern workplace, right? You have probably team members in multiple locations. This brings it all together. That bring your digital transformation and the combining with the modern workplace allows Recovery Point now to, if I hear you right, bring in the right people regardless of location, get the real time information at your fingertips once it's all done.
Yeah, very, very, very insightful observation. You were absolutely spot on. There was in a legacy sense, there was this notion and system limitation that everybody had to be in Germantown, right? And to be effective. And that works for a small controlled growth, but it doesn't work for scale. So yeah, now we're evolving into, it really doesn't matter where you sit. And it allows us to hire professionals that we really want, who are not in a position to relocate or don't want, if you don't want to come from Florida to the 40-inch snow northeast, it's a crazy year this year, right? If you don't want to do that, then in the old days I couldn't hire you. Today I can hire you. So,
well, correct. If I looked at your LinkedIn profile, it says I stated earlier you're in Maryland, but you're actually in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, I was born and raised in the Allentown, Bethlehem area, and it's where my original data center business was born back in the 90s. We had subsequently sold that and went through a bunch of M&A activity, but yeah, I drive to Maryland, Germantown, Maryland, which is just one state south of us, on an as-needed basis, and it's good, It's a nice drive.
I talked to a colleague of mine in Scranton, and he said it was an oddball snow year.
Yeah, very, very, very odd. Very odd.
So, Brian, tell me what's next. How is this partnership going to benefit our clients at CIO Advise going forward?
Well, I think, like we had said a little bit earlier, the ability to offer modern DRaaS services to clients at a fair price through a recommendation from CIO Advise, I think, is a win-win situation for both companies. And also, as part of our cybersecurity assessments that we do, this is critical, like we talked about. Having access to data, if you get compromised, is paramount. And so, working with the Recovery Point team, understanding what our client needs, putting together a great service package for them, and then executing on that. The other thing is they're building other data centers, or buying other data centers around the country. So not only do they do the DRaaS service, but you can also have infrastructure as a service as well. So the ability to take servers from inside the office building, put them into a hardened facility, attach the DRaaS to that, it's a win-win situation.
Wonderful. So Brian or Bob, before we wrap up, I'll give you a chance to kind of, anything, describe how it is working with Brian and the team at CIO Advise. Everything that we do, what you're feeling, how you feel about the whole relationship, how that relationship is benefiting, Recovery Point now and into the future.
Yeah, sure. No, it's been great. I know that's an easy way to say it, but it is true. Brian's leadership is exemplary. Everybody is, nose to the grindstone, very focused on the goals, productive. It's very knowledgeable. All the things you need in a partnership like this, and we've made great progress. I have high confidence we'll get in under the wire, and it's going to be great, great assistance in our evolution. A lot like Recovery Point. Brian's available. Like if we needed something, we it's not like he's sitting in an ivory tower. He's available, and we that's a great relationship. We offer ourselves at the executive level at our Recovery Point. We offer ourselves to our clients, and I think that's a differentiator. I don't think you can call the CIO or the CEO of IBM or some other crazy large company that we may consider competitors in some way, Microsoft, for example, or whatever. We're not going to we're just not available, right? So,
and I think that's a great point, Bob. Is I can call Tony if there's an issue or if I need help right away, and he'll drop everything and call me back and we'll talk. Or Bob, same thing. And same thing for us. Like, hey, Brian, I heard something. Can you help us out here? Get on a call. Get it done. Get it resolved as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and that's so important in today's world. Brian, I'm going to give you the last word today on the whole relationship, how things, and kind of to sum up, the wealth of services that CIO Advise can offer to organizations like Bob's who are thinking about digital transformation or need some expert guidance on security or disaster recovery or whatever technology issue they may be having.
Yeah, I think this the time that we're in right now is extraordinary, right? With the pandemic, hopefully over the next few months it'll settle down with the vaccines that are coming out. But it's really a great time to just sit back and take a look at, okay, how did we do? What are we going to do better? How are we going to come out of this stronger than we ever have been? And normally that's through all the things we were talking about. How do we protect our data? How do we get our data? And how do we modernize our processes so that people can work remotely anywhere at any time? Because guess what? This pandemic's going to end, but when's the next one coming, right? These are realities of our situation today. And I think the set of products that CIO Advise offers is really coming in and working side by side with the executive leadership of a company to formulate those strategies, formulate those plans, and then execute on them. And having great partners like Bob, and Recovery Point, and being able to offer those as a package deal into our clients really makes the sale a lot easier for us. CIO Advise is an advisory firm, right? We have lots of products in there and that we would love to sell you, but we also talk about our competitor products, because if that's what's going to be most beneficial for a client, we're going to recommend that. And I got several clients that we've done that for. I've been trying to sell them something. I say, this is not going to fit. Let's go look for something else. We go look for something else and we find it. So I think at the end of the day, in this unprecedented environment that we find ourselves, it's a great time to take a look over the last 6 to 8 months, figure out where do we go wrong? Where do we go right? What are we going to do now that, the restrictions are going to start opening up? How do we make sure that we're better than we've ever been before? And that we're gonna capitalize on the new norm marketplace, right? How do we go sell our services? I mean, the old days of whining and dining our clients and getting sales that way is over. What we're doing right now is how you make a sale, and it's a little different than going to a restaurant and having conversations and getting to know people, which I do miss, and I hope we get back to that soon.
Well, Bob, Brian and I are in close proximity to Tampa, and he said something about the next wave pandemic coming. I hope it's for a little while, because I think we want to enjoy, Super Bowl champion standing up in Tampa for a little while before we, I want to get back to a Lightning game and go to a Bucks game next year. So
there you go.
I think we got. Let's not wish that next pandemic for many, many, many years to come.
And now a Blue Jays team, right?
No. Being a Canadian originally, living in Florida, I still miss my Blue Jays. Bob, give us the website and contact information for Recovery Point for anybody who's interested in having further conversation with you or anybody on the team there.
Yeah, sure. I would focus them on recoverypoint.com. That's just a good place to learn a little bit more about us. Our contact information is out there. Our leadership, if you're interested in learning about any one of our backgrounds, not just Tony, Rob, and I, but others in the company. The product set is defined there, and our marketing department is run by Archana Mehta, and she's an excellent resource for information in cooperative selling situations, and she's certainly available as well. Does an outstanding job for us, and I certainly appreciate her.
All right, Brian, over to you. How do people get a hold of our company at CIO Advise, and what's the best way for them to reach out to us?
Exactly the same thing. CIOadvise.com. There's a wealth of content on there, everything from how do we get PPP money for technology to different types of products that we offer, different types of services we offer. Of course, Stuart, you guys do a great job with content creation. There's always fresh content on our website. Feel free to browse that. If you need to contact us, just click the contact link. We'll get it right out to you as soon as possible.
Great. And gentlemen, with that, we're going to wrap it up. Great. Thanks for joining us. And we look forward to our next one in the future here as we start building out our podcast series here and our YouTube channel. Gentlemen, thanks again for doing this. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.